Serena Rollins was supposed to get married the next day. Instead, she was found dead in her bedroom before the sun even came up. Everyone in the small Florida town of Bellwood was shocked. She was loved, admired, and known for her kindness. Her brother, Pastor Isaiah Rollins, stood at her funeral, heartbroken and silent, giving a moving eulogy. No one could have guessed he would later be the one police came for. The news of Serena's death broke early that morning. Her fiancé, David Kersey, a local police officer, had called 911 after finding her body. He sounded shaken, barely holding it together. He told dispatchers there was blood and that she felt cold. When officers arrived, they found Serena in her robe, the same one she wore after her hair appointment the night before. Her makeup was laid out, shoes ready, but the room felt off. Something didn't sit right. There were no signs of a break-in or struggle. Her wrists were lightly tied with ribbon, the same kind she had used to wrap gifts for her wedding guests. A typed note sat on her desk. It looked like a goodbye letter, but it wasn't signed. Nothing in the room suggested she had done this to herself, but some still tried to believe it was a suicide. That would have been easier to accept. Serena's mother, Lois, collapsed in the front yard when she arrived. Isaiah stood by her, dressed in his church clothes, quiet and distant. David, though the last person to see her alive, didn't run or try to cover anything up. He waited on the porch, holding her ring. People started wondering if the pressure of the wedding had gotten to Serena. Maybe she'd had second thoughts. But that wasn't the truth. Serena was the light of the community. She organized events, helped families in need, and was always involved in church. Her brother Isaiah had led that same church for over a decade, admired for his calm and charm. Their mother carried herself like a queen. To everyone in Bellwood, the Rollins family seemed perfect. But after Serena's death, things began to surface. Whispers from neighbors, odd behavior, small details that started to piece together a different picture. One neighbor mentioned how Isaiah used to be close with Serena, but hadn't visited her in a long time. Others noticed she had asked someone outside their church to officiate her wedding. That seemed strange to people who knew how important family and tradition were to her. At church, Serena had stopped singing, even though she used to lead worship. A secretary once heard her ask if church records were confidential. That question never left her mind. It didn't sound like a joke. After her death, Isaiah never preached about her, never spoke of grief. He gave a short message about forgiveness and moved on. People began to feel something wasn't right. Then there was Micah, 16. Quiet, distant. He lived with the Rollins family, but no one really knew how he fit in. Some said he was adopted, others weren't sure. He didn't cry when Serena died. He didn't speak. When child services came, he didn't resist, just packed a small bag and left with them. He went to live with a foster couple across town who had only met Serena once. They gave him space, maybe too much. A few days later, David went back to Serena's house to collect her things. He found a notebook under her pillow, brown leather, worn, no name. Inside were messy pages, scattered thoughts, emotional entries. Serena had written about wanting to leave town. She said the truth about Micah would destroy everything. She was scared of what he'd find out and who he would blame. That notebook opened the door to secrets that had been buried for years. And when investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a truth darker than anyone imagined. It wasn't cold feet or wedding day pressure. Serena had found out something about Isaiah, something he couldn't let her reveal. And to protect his image, his church, and whatever secret tied him to Micah, he took her life just hours before she was meant to start a new one. Bellwood would never be the same again. The town that once praised the Rollins family now had to face the reality that perfection was only a mask. Behind the sermons and smiles was something broken, something deadly. Micah sat across from the detectives in a quiet room painted with soft colors, made to feel safe. But no paint could cover what he was carrying. He didn't cry. He didn't shake. He just stared ahead, eyes tired but clear. When they asked if he remembered anything strange before Serena died, he hesitated, then nodded. He said he had heard her crying 2 nights before the wedding, said she was talking on the phone in the kitchen late at night, whispering. He didn't hear everything, but he caught a few words. Can't hide this anymore, and he'll lose everything. He thought she was talking to David, maybe cold feet. But now, it made sense. They asked about Isaiah. Micah looked down. He said Isaiah used to check on him often, too often, sometimes late at night. When he was younger, he didn't understand. Now he did. He didn't go into details. He just said he never felt like a son. He felt owned. And then he said something that changed everything. Micah said Serena was going to take him away after the wedding. They had planned to leave Bellwood. She said she had saved money, said they'd start fresh somewhere no one knew them. He remembered her laughing about it. A scared laugh, like she was trying to believe it could really happen. The detectives asked if he ever saw Isaiah the night Serena died. Micah paused for a long time. Then he said, "He was there." He said he woke up to the sound of Serena's door shutting. He peeked through his cracked door and saw Isaiah walking down the hallway. His robe was open. He didn't say anything. He just left. Micah didn't go into Serena's room. He was scared. He stayed in bed, frozen. By the time the sun came up, David was knocking on the door, calling Serena's name. That moment sealed it. It was no longer just suspicion or whispers. It was witness. Back at the station, David handed over everything. Serena's journal, the DNA results, the flash drive. The evidence was undeniable. Isaiah Rollins wasn't just Serena's brother. He was her abuser, the father of her child, and the man who silenced her to protect his secret. When the sheriff's office showed up at the church to arrest him, Isaiah was in his office, preparing Sunday's sermon. He didn't run. He just looked up and said, "I was wondering when you'd come." The courtroom was silent when the charges were read. Murder, incest, obstruction of justice. People in the pews of Bellwood's beloved church sat stunned. Some wept. Others left, angry, betrayed. The man they had trusted to guide their faith had destroyed his own family to protect a lie. At Serena's reburial months later, Micah stood quietly with David. A new headstone had been placed, one that told the truth. Not about how she died, but about who she was. A survivor who tried to do the right thing, even when it cost her everything. Bellwood still whispers her name, not in shame, in honor. At first, Micah didn't say much, just what everyone already knew. Serena raised him, and Isaiah had always been part of their lives. But then he mentioned something different. Something strange had happened the year before Serena died. He paused, then quietly said, "There was a fight." The room went still. He described how, just a week before the wedding, he'd gotten up late one night to get water and overheard Serena and Isaiah arguing on the back porch. They weren't yelling, but the words were sharp. He remembered Serena saying something about ruining everything, and not involving Micah. He couldn't hear it all. But he remembered how her voice cracked, something he'd never heard before. Then Micah shared something even more painful. "I used to think it was a dream," he whispered. "When I was younger, I'd see him leaving her room really late. She'd tell me I was sleepwalking, that I imagined it." So he stopped asking. The detectives didn't interrupt. They just wrote it all down. And now, with the video, the DNA results, Serena's journal, and Micah's testimony, his memories were no longer just emotional fragments. They were evidence. But Isaiah denied everything. When confronted, he acted shocked, almost offended. "That boy is confused," he said. "Serena had emotional issues. She lied. None of that happened." He gave explanations for everything, said the therapy records were from years ago, that the SUV sighting was wrong, that the journal wasn't real. But what he couldn't explain was the video, or the DNA. And slowly, the town that once praised him as a man of God began to question everything. Pastor Isaiah Rollins, their trusted leader, was now standing trial for first-degree murder. In court, he looked thinner. His suit hung looser. But his face stayed calm, almost too calm. His lawyers painted Serena as emotionally unstable, overwhelmed with secrets and guilt. They pointed to her suicide note, the typed pages, and the lack of bruises. This wasn't murder, they argued. It was mental illness. Isaiah, they claimed, was simply the brother caught in the crossfire. But the prosecution came ready. They started with the DNA, undeniable. Then came the video. Serena's voice naming Isaiah as the father of her child and the man she feared. Micah testified bravely. Calm and clear, he spoke about the late-night visits, the argument before her death, and the truth he had only recently begun to understand. Delilah Boone confirmed Serena had accessed Isaiah's old therapy files. Quincy Jett told the court he saw Isaiah's SUV outside Serena's house the night she died. Then the forensic team took the stand. They explained how the scene had been staged. Serena's wrists were tied after death. The bruising didn't match suicide. The note? It was typed on a computer that wasn't hers. Each detail chipped away at Isaiah's image. By closing arguments, no one saw a pastor anymore. They saw a man hiding behind faith and authority, now trapped by truth. The jury needed less than 6 hours. When the verdict was read, Isaiah didn't move. No tears, no emotion. Just a cold, empty stare. Guilty. First-degree murder. Life in prison without parole. Some people in the courtroom cried. Others whispered in disbelief. But for the town of Bellwood, it wasn't just a verdict. It was the end of the man they thought they knew. Isaiah Rollins never apologized. He was led away in cuffs, silent, his head held high. No words, no confession. Just the sound of a gavel that would echo for the rest of his life. In the weeks after the trial, more truth came out. Their mother, Lois Rollins, the calm, respected matriarch, was arrested for obstruction of justice. Investigators found she'd destroyed hospital records from Micah's birth, hid photos, and paid a lawyer to bury family secrets. Her trial would come later, but her image was already shattered. David Kersey, the man Serena was supposed to marry, moved on. He remarried 2 years later. Micah was placed under legal guardianship outside the county. He started therapy, switched schools, and left behind the name Rollins. He cut all ties to Bellwood. No one knew what to do with a boy like Micah. Brilliant, broken, and carrying the weight of a secret that destroyed almost everyone who tried to bury it. But he survived. He never spoke publicly. Not about the trial, not about Isaiah, not even about Serena. But he kept a few things. The flash drive, the journal, and the letter Serena wrote to him, not to explain everything, but to say goodbye. Her grave sits quietly at the far end of Bellwood Cemetery, not near the community leaders or the church elders, but alone. Some come to visit, others avoid it. Some call her a victim, others call her a coward. But no one can forget her anymore. Because in the end, for all the lies and all the pain, one truth remained. She died trying to do the right thing, too late to save herself, but maybe just in time to save the boy she never got to call her son. In the end, Serena Rollins' story became far more than just a family tragedy. It became a reckoning. A quiet woman with a heavy burden, she tried to break free from years of silence, secrecy, and shame. Though she lost her life before she could protect Micah publicly, the truth she left behind shattered the facade of righteousness that had shielded Isaiah Rollins for so long. The justice system didn't just convict a man, it exposed a legacy of control, manipulation, and silence. Thank you for following this heartbreaking but necessary story. We extend our deepest gratitude to all who continue to support victims of abuse, speak up for truth, and believe in justice, even when it comes at great personal cost. To those still healing, still searching for answers, your voices matter, your stories matter. Disclaimer: this content is created for educational and storytelling purposes. While inspired by true crime elements, names, events, and characters may be fictionalized or altered for privacy, clarity, and ethical considerations. Viewer discretion is advised, and the aim is not to sensationalize tragedy, but to highlight the emotional, psychological, and societal impact of such events.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more